My husband's secretary was scratched by an electric scooter and insisted on surgery, crying. As a doctor, I chose to treat my mother-in-law's heart disease first. The surgery lasted 8 hours, but when I got home, I was greeted by a slap from my husband. He yelled, "Shin Xinyue is the daughter of the richest man in Haicheng. She's here to experience life. Can you afford to offend her?" I was stunned. When did my dad get another daughter? Before I could react, I was knocked unconscious by my husband. When I woke up again, I was in a racetrack. My hands and feet were tied, the ropes attached to the back of a racing car. My husband's voice was icy. "You delayed Xinyue's treatment, so let you experience what a car accident feels like." I was only wearing a dress, and I was in pain all over when I struggled to sit up from the ground. I shook my dazed head and realized I was wearing a mask. It must be to prevent people from taking pictures and posting them online. I was knocked unconscious by Xie Xingzhou. His fist was like a hammer. I was already exhausted, and after being slapped and punched, I couldn't take it. At this moment, Xie Xingzhou was sitting not far away, expressionless. Beside him stood many playboys, all second-generation rich from prominent families in Haicheng. Of course, Shin Xinyue was also there. She crossed her arms and looked at me disdainfully, her eyes full of resentment. Xie Xingzhou said in a deep voice, "Jiang Xian, didn't you say Xinyue's injury wasn't serious? Then I'll let you experience what it feels like to be in pain." I opened my mouth in shock, my eyes fixed on the wound less than 2 centimeters long on Shin Xinyue's calf. She was scratched by an electric scooter, and you couldn't even find the wound if you didn't look closely. I propped myself up and tried to calmly say to Xie Xingzhou, "Mother-in-law had a heart attack, there's no time to delay." Shin Xinyue had such a small injury. She insisted on me giving her stitches. I told her to find another doctor, but she wouldn't listen. What could I do? Hearing me mention my mother-in-law, Xie Xingzhou's expression changed slightly. But before he could speak, Shin Xinyue said sharply, "You're lying. Xingzhou Gij arranged for me to take care of Auntie, and I took good care of her. Her heart disease was almost cured. It's clear that you can't stand me and deliberately refused to do the surgery for me." As soon as she finished speaking, Xie Xingzhou's face became gloomy again. He said in a cold voice, "My mother has always been taken care of by Xinyue. She is careful and considerate, and my mother's condition has stabilized. How could she suddenly have a heart attack?" Careful and considerate? Hey. Through the mask, my voice was muffled. "Xie Xingzhou, do you know why your mother got sick? It's because this careful and considerate Shin Xinyue went to get her medicine and didn't come back for several hours." Remembering the miserable state of my mother-in-law when she was sent to the hospital by the neighbor, her lips were purple. I couldn't help but feel tears welling up in my eyes. Over the years, I've been with Xie Xingzhou to avoid a business marriage, away from my parents and relatives. It was my mother-in-law who gave me motherly love, treating me like her own daughter. Hearing me say this, Xie Xingzhou frowned. Shin Xinyue's face changed, and she immediately threw herself into his arms. "Xingzhou-ge, I've never been wronged like this before. Jiang Xian is slandering me. There's nothing wrong with Auntie at all. She just can't stand me being with you and said that on purpose." As soon as she said this, there was immediate discussion around. "This Jiang Xian is really good at lying. She even slanders someone as good as Shin Xinyue. She's asking for trouble." "That's right. Jiang Xian is the daughter of the richest man, a golden girl. And she dares to find an excuse not to treat her." I was simply unable to defend myself, and my chest rose and fell with anger. Just as I was about to explain, I heard Xie Xingzhou coldly order, "Since Jiang Xian doesn't know what she did wrong, start the car and drag her for 1,000 meters. Buzz! With a sound, the car sped off without explanation. I was dragged by the rope, sliding wildly across the ground. My smooth arms were quickly abraded, the pain causing me to sweat cold and scream incessantly. Xie Xingzhou stared at me intently, without a word. Shin Xinyue, standing beside him, had a satisfied gleam in her eyes, snorting coldly. "That's a relief." The heirs of the wealthy families were also cheering, like wild beasts who had seen fresh blood, applauding one after another. Only one person, the only one sitting like Xie Xingzhou, followed my figure with his eyes, his voice devoid of emotion. Isn't this bad? She is still a woman, and besides, she has parents. What if they come looking? Xie Xingzhou pursed his lips, interrupting him with some annoyance. Jiang Xian is an orphan, where would she get parents? As long as it doesn't result in death, it's fine. I've been raising her and spoiling her these past years, completely ruining her. Today let's teach her a lesson. The man raised an eyebrow and stopped talking, no longer looking at me, and began to play on his phone. I was in so much pain that I couldn't care about anything else. I just wanted the car to stop quickly, so I shouted at the top of my lungs. Xie Xingzhou, make the car stop now. I didn't frame Shen Xingyue. You can ask your mother if you don't believe me. Xie Xingzhou's eyes locked onto me, his jaw tense. My mother has a bad heart. What are your intentions trying to get me to tell her about this? Exactly. Hissed. Shen Xingyue, seizing the opportunity, used the less than 2-centimeter wound as a bargaining chip to play the victim. She pitifully raised her leg for Xie Xingzhou to see. Brother Xingzhou, I just wanted Jiang Xian to kowtow and apologize to me. I'm hurt like this. Is that too much to ask? Besides, if she doesn't apologize, if my father finds out about my hand, her situation will only be worse. Suddenly, a sharp gaze fell on Shen Xingyue. The man playing on his phone next to her had an unfathomable look in his eyes. But Shen Xingyue didn't notice at all. Tears falling as soon as she said they would, her eyes as red as a pitiful little rabbit. After 5 years of marriage, I knew Xie Xingzhou too well. He was susceptible to this. Sure enough, he fondly touched Shen Xingyue's head, and then ordered in my direction. Speed up the car, stop only when Jiang Xian is willing to kowtow and apologize. The car's speed reached 40 miles per hour. The dress on my body was quickly torn. My back and arms were bloodied. The pain was excruciating. The heirs of the wealthy families felt it wasn't exciting enough, and they were all eager to try, wishing the car would go even faster. Physiological tears welled up in my eyes, but they were all hidden behind the mask. No one saw them. The entire racetrack echoed with my screams. Xie Xingzhou clenched the chair armrests tightly, his face ugly. Jiang Xian, aren't you going to apologize? I was in so much pain that I couldn't speak, but I still used all my strength to ask, word by word. Where exactly did I go wrong? All I could hear was the roar of the wheels, and all the muscles in my body were twitching. Yes, where did I go wrong? If I had to say I did anything wrong, the only wrong thing I did in my life was running away from home. Originally, my father had arranged a business marriage for me with a man I had never even met. Outraged, I tore up the photo he handed me, left home, and changed my name. Later, I met Xie Xingzhou, and I endured all the hardships I had never endured before. My mother-in-law was in poor health, and Xie Xingzhou was busy with work. I worked at the hospital during the day, and had to go home to take care of my mother-in-law at night. Originally, life was still considered happy. After all, Xie Xingzhou was considerate, and his mother treated me like her own daughter. But who knew? Shen Xingyue suddenly appeared. A bright and enthusiastic girl, Xie Xingzhou found it difficult to refuse. Later, he somehow found out that Shen Xingyue was the only daughter of the richest Shen family in High City. He became even more uncontrollably infatuated, and his relationship with Shen Xingyue became closer and closer. I protested, I vented my dissatisfaction, but it was all ignored. Later, he even relieved me of taking care of my mother-in-law, instead handing it over to Shen Xingyue. I was gradually marginalized in the family, and our relationship became more and more precarious. I thought about going home. I thought about divorcing him. But in the past 2 years, I couldn't bring myself to do it. After all, we had been together for 5 years, and I had given so much. When it came to withdrawing, I was always reluctant. I thought that in time, Xie Xingzhou would remember my goodness and return to the family. Who knew things would escalate to this point today? My body hurt, but my heart hurt even more. The places my body passed were stained red with blood. Through the mask, I looked at Xie Xingzhou in the distance and shouted in despair. The only thing I did wrong was not divorcing you sooner. Xie Xingzhou's face darkened, and he said angrily, I'm giving you an out, and you're not taking it. Isn't it painful enough yet? Shen Xingyue patted his chest to help him breathe. Brother Xingzhou, don't worry. I've had pebbles prepared to scatter on the road. I'm afraid Jiang Xian won't apologize? In my shock, a group of men in black appeared from who knows where. Each of them held a sack of sharp pebbles and, without a word, scattered them on the racetrack. The race car began to bump, and my body rubbed against the pebbles, soon becoming covered in cuts and bruises. Ah! The pain pierced my heart. The pebbles were so sharp, clearly carefully selected, and many were embedded in my body. It hurt so much, it really hurt so much. My dress was almost completely torn. Thankfully I was wearing safety shorts, so I didn't expose myself. I'm sorry, I apologize. Stop dragging me, I apologize. I screamed miserably, shouting, wanting to give up my pride and apologize. Unfortunately, the car had already driven far away, and my voice was too small, so Xie Xingzhou didn't hear clearly. He asked the people around him, "What is Jiang Xian saying? Is she going to apologize?" The young heirs of influential families looked at each other, and someone exchanged a glance with Shen Xinyue, with malicious intent. Jiang Xian said she will never apologize and even said Shen Xinyue deserves to die. Yeah, I heard it too. Xinyue is the only daughter of the Shen family, and Jiang Xian is an orphan. How dare she say that? After adding fuel to the fire, Xie Xingzhou became even more furious. When he spoke, his voice was icy to the extreme. Drive straight to 100 miles. All right, Brother Xingzhou. The racer agreed with a strange laugh, and then my body was suddenly shot out like an arrow. At Yinben's speed, only my back was injured. But with the sudden acceleration, I was like a rag doll, tossed upside down by the race car. My chest and back were no longer in one piece. My tied legs seemed to be fractured due to constantly hitting the ground. Help me. Under extreme pain and fear, my voice was distorted. My throat was full of the taste of blood, and at this moment, I truly experienced the feeling of death. However, all I could hear was the laughter of those playboy heirs. Their voices were loud, as if deliberately trying to cover up my cries for help. Shen Xinyue leaned in Xie Xingzhou's arms, like a viper in the gutter, her lips hooked as she stared at me. Even from far away, I could still see the shape of her mouth as she moved it. She said, "Serves you right. Pain, heartbreak, disappointment, anger, grievance." Layers of emotions intertwined, entangled, and lingered in my heart. I finally couldn't help it and fainted. Not even 2 minutes later, extreme pain struck again. I screamed with a burst. Ah! Someone had rudely splashed me awake with ice water mixed with salt. My whole body was covered in wounds, and the salt water seeped in. It was simply a living hell. However, the race car still didn't stop, and at a speed of 100 miles, I felt like my internal organs had shifted, and my arms had long since lost their strength. Xie Xingzhou asked in a cold voice. "Still not admitting your mistake? Jiang Xian, who on earth gave you the confidence and temper? Have I spoiled you this much in these 5 years? What ridiculous words." I gritted my teeth and stared at him intently. Strangely enough, at the beginning, I was in so much pain that I couldn't wait to stop. I would have apologized even if I had to kowtow. But now, I felt a numbness. I finally understood that today's situation was a trap set by Shen Xinyue from beginning to end. Even if I apologized, she would have other means to torture me. This wasn't a solution. I, Shen Jiangxian, have been stubborn since the day I was born. Back then, I was able to tear up that man named Su Wu's photo and run away from home. I never went back, no matter how difficult it was. Today, even if I die, I don't want to apologize. As the race car ran around the track again and again, at the closest point to Xie Xingzhou, I used all my strength to scream with a heart-wrenching cry. "Scumbag! Kill me if you have the guts. You." Xie Xingzhou was so angry that he almost crushed the armrest of the chair. Shen Xinyue started to act aggrieved again. "Brother Xingzhou, look at her." The rich heirs whistled, applauded, and laughed mockingly. Only the man who was silently playing with his phone suddenly raised his eyelids and glanced at me. Our eyes met, and I gave him a sarcastic look. He frowned slowly. Distant thunder suddenly rumbled in the sky, followed by a torrential downpour falling without warning. It was as if God was crying for me. Umbrellas were raised on the viewing platform, and Xie Xingzhou thoughtfully held Shen Xingyue in his arms. He wouldn't let even a drop of rain touch her. But I was drenched to the bone by the rain. The entire racetrack was stained red with my blood, and the distance I was dragged had long exceeded 1,000 meters. But Xie Xingzhou still didn't tell anyone to stop. He seemed determined to make me admit my mistake, and I didn't want to compromise anymore. Risking my worthless life, I would never beg for mercy. The rain soon turned into hail, pelting down loudly. Xie Xingzhou finally couldn't help it. When I passed the viewing platform again, he suddenly stood up. "It's just an apology. Are you willing to die rather than say it?" He gritted his teeth, his face ugly. My voice was weak, the words fragmented. "Murder is against the law, Xie Xingzhou. You wouldn't dare let me die." The hand at his side clenched into a fist. Xie Xingzhou roared in fury. "Drive it to 120 miles per hour. After all, it was a human life. Even the race car driver hesitated. "Brother Xingzhou, the hail is so heavy, and there are stones on the ground, if we drive too fast." "Didn't you hear what Brother Xingzhou said? If anything happens, it won't be your problem." Shen Xingyue spoke up in dissatisfaction. "Your job was arranged by us. Don't make us angry for someone who's not worth it." The race car driver had no choice but to increase the speed to 120 miles per hour. It's no exaggeration to say that at that moment, my heartbeat seemed to stop. Even my soul seemed to be left behind by the speed of the car. Everything I had experienced in the first half of my life flashed through my mind. I saw my father's disappointed face when I ran away from home. "Don't come back if you leave. The Shen family doesn't have a daughter like you." I saw my mother-in-law getting off the operating table, grasping my trembling hands gratefully. "Xian, you've worked hard, don't worry, I don't like that Shen Xingyue. Xingzhou won't abandon you to be with her." I saw the ugly faces of the rich second generation around me. They were clapping and cheering, venting Shen Xingyue's anger. I saw Xie Xingzhou's ugly face, and the man who had been playing on his phone, his brows tightly furrowed. Finally, I slammed my head heavily against the ground. I didn't want to be tortured anymore, to be humiliated. I didn't want to live anymore. With a snap, the mask on my face shattered into several pieces, revealing my face covered in sweat. I closed my eyes tightly. However, at that moment, the man in the stands suddenly stood up, the movement so large that he even knocked over his chair. Stop now." The man frantically grabbed Xie Xingzhou's arm, his eyes fixed on me. Xie Xingzhou frowned. "Su Wu, what's wrong? You've never been so flustered." Hearing his name, my whole body stiffened, my pupils contracted. The man's voice trembled. "She is my uncle's daughter, Shen Jiangxian." Xie Xingzhou stopped the race car now. Shen Xingyue, who was standing beside him, instantly became serious and glared at him defensively. Xie Xingzhou opened his mouth in surprise, unable to believe it. "How is that possible?" The man stamped his foot, then gave up trying to communicate with him, and rushed towards me regardless. Almost at the same time, my mother-in-law, still wearing her hospital gown, suddenly appeared not far away. Seeing the scene of me being dragged by the race car, her face turned pale, and she clutched her heart and shouted at Xie Xingzhou, "You unfilial son! What are you doing? Xian just performed surgery on me. I would have died without her. How can you repay kindness with hatred?" Xie Xingzhou finally panicked, and Shen Xingyue clenched her palms nervously. Before I was about to close my eyes, I heard Xie Xingzhou shout anxiously, "Stop! Stop now!" However, the racer's desperate voice exploded in my ears. "Brother Xingzhou," I stepped on the brakes, "but it's not working." It's someone cut the brake line. Not far away, the color drained from Xie Xingzhou's face. He turned his head sharply and grabbed Shen Xingyue's wrist. "You did it." Shen Xingyue was so frightened that her chest rose and fell, her face turning pale. "Brother Xingzhou, it wasn't me, it really wasn't me." Xie Xingzhou couldn't afford to argue with her at this moment. The race car couldn't stop, and 2 lives were at stake. His own mother was still watching, and it looked like her heart disease was about to flare up again. He pushed Shen Xingyue away, and ran quickly towards Jiangxian. Su Wu was even more anxious. He had been looking for Shen Jiangxian for years, and he never would have imagined that she would be married to Xie Xingzhou. He wanted to use his body to stop the race car, but he couldn't find a way in. The car was going too fast. He had no choice but to call 120, emergency services, first and then call Old Master Shen. As expected, Old Master Shen had a way, and within moments the roar of a helicopter sounded over the racetrack. Then several professionals came down, stopped the race car, and rescued Shen Jiangxian and the racer. Su Wu's heart was pounding. He hugged the unconscious Shen Jiangxian into his arms, his eyes red. How could he not have recognized her? How could he not have recognized her? Su Wu wept with self-reproach, his heart aching beyond measure, and he was about to take Shen Jiangxian to the hospital, when Xie Xingzhou grabbed him. Jiangxian is my wife, where are you taking her? Xie Xingzhou's voice trembled uncontrollably. At first, he just wanted to punish Jiangxian to make Shen Xingyue happy. He never thought things would get so big. Who knew that it was all Shen Xingyue's conspiracy? Jiangxian wasn't lying. She really was doing surgery for his mother. But he actually believed Shen Xingyue and hurt Jiangxian so deeply. Xie Xingzhou's heart ached as if it were torn apart. But when he met Su Wu's piercing gaze, he guiltily trembled his eyelashes. Su Wu's eyes seemed to devour him. Her name is Shen Jiangxian. She is my fiancée, not called Jiangxian, and not your wife. A pang of bitterness went through him. And seeing Jiangxian lying in someone else's arms, Xie Xingzhou was almost driven mad with jealousy. Just as he was about to say something, he heard Su Wu grit his teeth and say, Old Master Shen is my uncle, and he only has one daughter, Xianxian. If you hadn't made Xianxian wear a mask, how would I not have recognized her, and let you torment her for so long? Xie Xingzhou, instead of lingering here, you should ask Shen Xingyue when she replaced Xianxian's identity. After speaking, Su Wu ran towards the door without looking back, holding Shen Jiangxian. And Xie Xingzhou, as if he had been reminded, finally reacted. He walked towards Shen Xingyue, and under the gaze of a group of already stunned wealthy young people, he grabbed her hair. Speak. What exactly is going on? Shen Xingyue's scalp was aching from being pulled, but she still wanted to argue. But before she could speak, some of the fearful wealthy young people panicked and said, Brother Xingzhou, this has nothing to do with us. Shen Xingyue wanted us to help her get a fake identity and fake education. And the injury on her leg, she did it herself. She thought your mother was troublesome, so she went out under the pretense of getting medicine, but she was actually shopping. If it wasn't for Shen Jiangxian doing the surgery in time, I'm afraid. If you want to blame someone, blame her. We don't know anything. Everyone spoke at once, telling everything. With each sentence, Shen Xingyue's face became more and more ugly, and in the end she was trembling with panic. Xie Xingzhou couldn't believe it. It was as if he had been struck by lightning, and the blood in his body was flowing in reverse. He stared at Shen Xingyue, but couldn't say a word. He couldn't believe that he had actually believed her for 2 years. At this moment, the assistant solemnly handed the phone to Xie Xingzhou. President Xie, we found out Shen Xingyue did cut the brake line of the race car. On the phone screen, the figure of Shen Xingyue sneaking into the car was very clear. Xie Xingzhou felt that all the blood in his body rushed to the top of his head, and his eyes went gold. Fortunately, someone was supporting him, so he didn't faint. On the other side, Xie's mother was crying and beating her chest. Xie Xingzhou, you unfilial son. How could you hurt Xianxian like this? If it wasn't for her all these years, I'm afraid I would have died countless times already. Shen Xingyue always bullied me when she was taking care of me. I was afraid you would worry, so I didn't say anything. Who knew it would lead to this disaster today? As she spoke, the old lady couldn't catch her breath, clutched her heart, and fainted. Mom! Xie Xingzhou pushed Shen Xingyue away and caught the old lady, shouting tremblingly. Ambulance! Call an ambulance! The scene was chaotic. Shen Xingyue's legs went soft and she collapsed to the ground. It's over, it's all over. I woke up in the hospital. When I opened my eyes, my vision was blurry, and it took a while to see clearly. Someone grabbed my hand, a very familiar feeling. I turned my head slightly and saw my father's haggard face and Su Wu's worried expression. Xianxian, you're finally awake. You've been in a coma for 3 days. I thought. My father's voice choked with sobs. I hadn't seen him in 5 years, and he seemed much older. I'm sorry, Dad. Those short 5 words took me a long time to say. My voice was not only pitifully small, but also hoarse and unpleasant. Dad squeezed my hand with concern. Don't say those things, it's all in the past, all in the past. Dad has finally found you now. When you get better, come home with me. I lowered my eyes and realized that I was covered in bandages. Su-woo, who was beside me, choked and said, You have a lot of stitches on your body, and your leg is also fractured, but don't worry, you can recover. Xian, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you sooner, I let you suffer. I opened my mouth to speak, but a burst of noise suddenly rang out outside. It sounded like Xie Xingzhou's voice, insisting on coming in. My father's face darkened. I haven't even had time to settle accounts with him for tormenting my daughter like this, and he came here first. Saying that, he patted my hand. Honey, lie down and rest, I'll take care of things outside. With that, he got up and pushed the door open. Sure enough, the moment the door closed, the noise outside stopped abruptly. It seemed my father's bodyguards had dragged Xie Xingzhou away. Su-woo sat down beside me, looking full of guilt. I looked into his eyes and slowly asked, We don't seem to have met before, why do you know me? Su-woo's eyes instantly became sad. He took out a photo from his pocket. It was a picture of me from 5 years ago. At that time, the two families were going to have a marriage alliance, and we exchanged photos. I suddenly understood and finally realized why I had no impression of him. After all, I was emotionally agitated back then, and I tore up the photo without even looking at it. No wonder I didn't recognize him. Su-woo said softly, Actually, the photo is secondary. Do you really not remember what happened when we were kids? I looked at him in confusion. When we were kids, we met? Su-woo was stunned, but quickly adjusted, reassuring himself. It was in kindergarten, it's understandable that you don't remember. Back then, I was being bullied and you helped me chase away the other kids. You told me your name was Shen Jiangxian, the only daughter of the richest man in Haiqing, and you'd support me. I carefully went over what he said in my mind, and realized that it seemed like there was such a thing. Looking at Su-woo again, I felt closer to him. He lowered his eyes. Xie Xingzhou bullied you like this, neither I nor uncle will let him off. In a week, when you can go out, we'll go to the racetrack. What you've been through, neither he nor Shinxinhua will escape. With Dad and Su-woo's company, time passed quickly. Dad spent a lot of money to hire a doctor for me, using the best medicine. By the 3rd day, I couldn't feel any pain anymore. Su-woo also put aside his work and spent every day with me, telling me jokes whenever he noticed I was a little unhappy. Soon a week had passed. I sat in a wheelchair and was pushed into the racetrack's viewing platform, taking the seat that Xie Xingzhou previously occupied. On the racetrack, Xie Xingzhou and Shinxinhua were tied up and dragged behind a car. His face was ugly, but he remained calm. When he met my mocking gaze, he even smiled at me. But Shinxinhua on the other side was not doing so well. After all, she saw how miserable I was back then. She screamed hysterically, Jiangxian, I was wrong, please let me go. I apologize to you, I'll kowtow to you. I shouldn't have impersonated you, let alone hurt you, please forgive me. Su-woo chuckled behind me, but his voice was cold. Actually, I knew she wasn't you that day, but I don't like to meddle in other people's business, so I didn't expose her. Who knew she would hurt you so badly? I sneered, staring intently at Shinxinua's eyes, and faintly ordered, 120 miles per hour. With a whoosh, the race car sped away. Xie Xingzhou and Shinxinhua were thrown high into the air, then slammed down hard, flying up, then slamming down again. My heart was pounding, and I clenched my fists, my nails breaking in my palm, but I couldn't feel the pain. Because I had already experienced more excruciating pain. Xie Xingzhou and Shinxinua's screams echoed throughout the racetrack. Even more tragic than I had been that day. The bodyguards expressionlessly prepared even sharper pebbles to scatter on the track, and used water hoses to spray chilly water on them. Shinxinhua constantly wailed and begged for mercy, fainting and then waking up in pain and then fainting again. Xie Xingzhou had been relatively calm at first, but under the extreme pain he couldn't help but scream repeatedly. Xian, I was bewitched by Xinxingyue. She's been lying to me. Please spare me. I'm sorry for what I did to you. I'm willing to make amends for the rest of my life. I turned a deaf ear, and just looked up at the sky. What a pity. The sun was shining brightly today, and there was no sign of rain, let alone hail. In the midst of screams, I coldly spoke. Keep going, just leave them a breath. Whatever happens, it's on me. I left early and returned to the hospital. Within 3 hours, both Xie Xingzhou and Xinxingyue were admitted. Su Wu said their injuries were more severe than mine. The car was on its last breath when it stopped. The doctor spent 10 minutes resuscitating them. I said expressionlessly, "This is what they deserve. I'll cover all the medical expenses." A month later, Xie Xingzhou, with his better physique, regained consciousness first. I sat in a wheelchair, supported by Su Wu, and went to his ward. Seeing me, a look of surprise flashed in Xie Xingzhou's eyes. He probably thought I was there to bury the hatchet. But instead, I handed him a divorce agreement. I'm giving you 2 choices. 1. A normal divorce leaving with nothing. 2. A divorce lawsuit. If things go as expected, your reputation will be ruined, and you'll face jail time. Xie Xingzhou was stunned, his eyes gradually turning red. Xian, does it really have to come to this? You know, I was also deceived. I sneered, the sound forced out of my throat. Whether you were deceived or not, you know in your heart. It can't possibly be all Xinxingyue's fault, and you have no fault at all, right? Xie Xingzhou was so anxious he wanted to get up, but as soon as he moved, he winced in pain. I admired his painful expression and said slowly, "Oh right, I forgot to tell you. In the month you've been in a coma in the hospital, your company is also on the verge of collapse. I'm afraid in the end, it'll be acquired by my family." Xie Xingzhou loved money the most. Hearing what I said, he panicked immediately and struggled to roll off the bed. Xian, let me go, don't do this. I was expressionless. His mother, who had been silent the whole time, helped Xie Xingzhou up, then suddenly, with a thump, she knelt down in front of me. I frowned and turned my wheelchair around. His mother said with tears streaming down her face, Xian, Mom knows you're a good child. Xingzhou bullied you. For my sake, please ask you and your father to give our family a chance. Auntie will kowtow to you. As she spoke, she began to bang her head on the ground. My nose stung, but I remained calm. Auntie, you're not my mother anymore. I took care of you for 5 years and even gave you a good heart. I have a clear conscience. I'm determined to get this divorce because I've decided to marry Su Wu. As I spoke, I looked over at Xie Xingzhou, who was already dazed. These 5 years have taught me one thing. Don't lower your standards when marrying someone. Because Xie Xingzhou isn't worthy. After I left the ward, the sound of things being smashed could be heard from inside. Xie Xingzhou must have lost control and thrown a fit. I heard Xinxingyue had also woken up, and I headed towards her ward. She lay alone in bed, without even someone to take care of her. Almost as soon as she saw me, she struggled to get up with eyes that looked ready to burst. Unfortunately, both of her legs were broken, and she couldn't move at all. Bitch, you're the one who ruined me. Su Wu pushed my wheelchair in front of the bed, and I raised my hand and slapped her across the face. Xinxingyue was stunned by the slap, and even more awful words came out of her mouth. I struck left and right, 2 more hard slaps swelling her face. Impersonating my identity, cutting the brake lines, torturing me so badly, and you still have the nerve to yell at me? Xinxingyue, you didn't think I would let you off easily, did you? I'll let you recover first. And after Su Wu and I get married, I'll definitely sue you. Neither you nor Xie Xingzhou will escape. Xinxingyue's lips trembled, and tears fell like a string of beads. How was I supposed to know you were Xin Jiangxian? You hid it and didn't say anything. You occupied Xie Xingzhou and wouldn't let him go. You stole him from me. I laughed and reached out to grab her hair. You really won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. You forged your identity and education, cut the brake lines, and almost killed me. I've already consulted a lawyer. You and Xie Xingzhou are both looking at 20 years minimum. What? Xinxingyue finally panicked, because she saw resolute confidence in my eyes. Her pupils constricted, and her tears flowed even more freely. No, I'm only in my 20s, I can't go in. Shen Jiangxian, I was wrong, punish me, hit me, scold me, just don't send me in. We're all women, doing this will ruin my whole life. I smiled more cruelly, watching her tears, and only felt a burst of pleasure in my heart. A woman like you, ruined is ruined, lest you endanger society. Saying that, I let go of her, and had Suwu push me out of the ward. In the following months, I didn't see anyone again, and focused on recovering from my injuries. During this time, I smoothly divorced Xie Xingzhou, and also sued him and Shen Xinyue. After a few more months, I finally recovered and could run and jump. My father held a wedding of the century for Su Wu and me, and almost all the prominent figures of Haiqing attended. But in the middle of the wedding, a crazy man suddenly rushed in. He shouted, "Xianxian is my wife, she can't marry someone else. Xianxian, come home with me, okay? Let's go home and have children. I won't like anyone else again, I only like you." My mother was angered to death by me, and the company is gone, I have nothing, only you Xianxian, ha 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 ha. I frowned, only then realizing that it was Xie Xingzhou. He had actually gone mad. The people present looked at him with disgust, and he was being held by several bodyguards, but he still had the energy to rush onto the stage. "Xianxian, come home with me, let's live our lives well, stop being so temperamental." I narrowed my eyes, and then ordered my assistant to call the police. Xie Xingzhou was dragged away and locked up in a mental hospital. The wedding between Su Wu and me was finally completed smoothly. A month after the wedding, Shen Xinyue's sentence was handed down. 20 years in prison. By the time she comes out, she'll be over 40. I was very satisfied with this result, and didn't care anymore. On the other hand, my mother-in-law passed away, and I haven't even gone to see her. I went to my mother-in-law's grave, offered chrysanthemums, and stood there all morning. Then I went to the mental hospital. The director said that he would take special care of Xie Xingzhou. Since he couldn't go to prison because he was insane, he would receive electroshock therapy in the mental hospital. The current Xie Xingzhou no longer had his previous arrogance, and was completely listless, afraid of everyone. He didn't even recognize me when he saw me. The director said with a smile, "He's afraid of being shocked, but without electroshock, the patient won't get better." I smiled and turned to leave the mental hospital. On the way back, Suwu held my hand, his voice low. "I never thought I'd have the day I could marry you." I touched my stomach, where a small life was lying, and would be born in 9 months. I took Suwu's arm, feeling the sunlight, so happy I was about to burst. My future was already by my side.